welcome to the Explainer. So let's just look at the headlines totally dominating our screens in 2026. I mean, if you've been following the news lately, you're probably just exhausted, right? It's this constant drumbeat of billion-dollar data centers being built, intense geopolitical chip wars, and massive tech giants laying off thousands of people just to fund their next frontier model. It's literally a landscape defined by big money, massive infrastructure, and a handful of huge countries fighting for absolute dominance. But what if I told you the most important AI story of the year actually isn't about who has the most computing power? There is a completely different, frankly amazing narrative unfolding right now, and it is fundamentally redefining how we look at the very future of technology.
Think about it like a tale of two tech worlds. On one hand, you've got big AI, the hyper-concentrated Silicon Valley race that's just obsessed with sheer scale, massive server farms, and honestly, endless capital. But on the flip side, we have what we're calling local AI. And this asks a much more practical question. Who actually gets to build with these tools? Because right now, a completely different, super grounded story is unfolding far, far away from California. It's happening in West Africa. And it's a story that completely shifts the focus away from just passively consuming technology to actually getting in there and creating with it. Okay, let's dive into this. Google has just opened the Africa Applied AI Lab right in the heart of Accra, Ghana. And the real key here is their specific promise of direct technical guidance and early access. Guys, this is a massive distinction. This isn't just about a massive corporation shipping a finished app from a headquarters overseas and just hoping consumers in Africa download it. No way. This is a dedicated physical space providing hands-on expert support for local innovators. It's literally giving them early access to Google's tech, sitting them down right next to engineers and researchers who are there to help them actually build something real. It is all about active creation, not passive consumption.
Now, you might be wondering, why Ghana? Well, Accra wasn't just picked out of a hat. Over the last several years, Ghana has been quietly but super powerfully building this reputation as a rising tech hub in West Africa. We're talking an incredibly vibrant, rapidly growing startup scene. They're massively improving their digital infrastructure, and they have this absolute demographic goldmine, a young, increasingly tech-fluent population. So putting the lab here, it's a deliberate bet. It's a bet that the next wave of vital AI applications won't necessarily just be exported out of Shenzhen or Silicon Valley. Instead, they're going to come from communities solving their own specific problems, using tools that, historically, have only been available to super well-resourced teams somewhere else. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive paradigm shift. See, we're really used to extractive AI. That's a model where technology basically extracts the data globally, but then the financial value and all the control flows straight back to a few wealthy nations. It's super resource-heavy and, frankly, exclusionary. But what we're seeing happen in Accra represents distributed AI. It's an empowering, highly localized technological movement. This is a huge shift where the people who are actually closest to a problem are finally given the tools to solve it themselves, which keeps both the value and the solutions right there within their own communities. So let's talk about what this actually means in practice, because the goal here is not just some generic AI experimentation. They are targeting crucial, real-world problems. Take agriculture, for example. We aren't just talking about global commodity crops here. We're talking about building tools that help farmers predict yields or detect diseases in specific local crop varieties that those massive global AI models were literally never trained on. Or in healthcare, imagine applications built entirely around the specific conditions and resource constraints of local clinics, rather than just assuming everyone has the infrastructure of a wealthy big city hospital. And in finance, they're developing tools explicitly designed for economies where a massive chunk of everyday transactions happens completely outside traditional banking systems. These are critical, everyday challenges that global AI models consistently overlook, simply because they're built for their own home markets first. All of this brings us to a pretty profound conversation happening right now about inequality. A recent UN scientific panel put it absolutely perfectly. They said AI itself isn't inherently good or bad. Its impact depends entirely on the choices governments, companies, and societies make right now. I absolutely love this quote because it completely grounds our whole explainer today. We are standing at a crossroads, right? We have to ask whether AI will just concentrate wealth and power even further into the hands of a very small few, or whether it can actually spread opportunity more evenly than previous technological waves did. The choices we make right now, while this tech is literally still being shaped, are going to dictate the future. So the crucial point is this idea of simply opening a door. Let's be real about the scale for a second. Globally, AI infrastructure spending this year alone is measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars.
Against that kind of massive backdrop, custom chips and giant power contracts, a single research lab in Accra is just a tiny line item on a ledger. But here's the thing, providing access to AI tools and expert guidance doesn't actually require a $100 billion data center. It just requires opening a door. And for historically under-resourced researchers and entrepreneurs who have always had to somehow work around limited access to cutting-edge tools, opening this door matters disproportionately more than the raw dollar figure suggests. It's a huge example of a major company choosing to widen access rather than just deepening its own massive advantage.
Now, what does success actually look like here? Honestly, the goal isn't to turn Accra into an overnight Silicon Valley. That's just not realistic, and frankly, it's kind of a flawed way to even frame this. Real success is building a whole new generation of local founders. Think about it. If, over the next few years, even just a handful of local health tech, agri-tech, or fintech companies come out of this lab and actually scale up, if they're hiring locally and solving those ignored problems using tools they were previously denied, that is a massive victory. It might be slower, and yeah, it might be less flashy than some trillion-dollar valuation headline, but it gives founders the tools and resources they actually need to truly transform their regions.
Look, it is incredibly easy to get cynical right now. The 2026 AI anxiety is very real. The massive layoffs, the chip wars, the endless battles over frontier benchmarks, they all totally deserve our scrutiny. And if you're feeling a bit of AI fatigue, that is completely valid. But running parallel to that, there is 2026 AI hope. We really have to remember that parallel stories exist in this space. The exact same technology causing so much anxiety is also being used in places like Accra to open doors that used to be firmly shut. Both of these things are true at once. The story of AI isn't just one monolithic narrative, it's dozens of them, all happening at exactly the same time. In this lab, it represents a genuinely hopeful path forward amidst all the noise.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. A lab in Accra might not make the front page over some flashy new chatbot, but if even a fraction of the entrepreneurs who walk through its doors build something that solves a real problem for their community, it will have mattered so much more than most of the news dominating the cycle right now. Technology doesn't have to be this zero-sum race to the top where one side just takes absolutely everything. Sometimes shifting the entire balance of power is simply about who finally gets a seat at the table. If this explainer gave you a bit of hope about where this technology can go, subscribe to Mistech.